Again, I'd like everybody to welcome Sherry Bennett, who's with us. Sherry is our nurse practitioner at the CWC, and we also have Casey Hazy, who is helps with our programming, with our classes, and hopefully we're going to get back to that very soon as we get through this issue with the pandemic. And we also have Amanda Jackson with us today. So we kind of have like the whole crew here. And we've all worked together in different ways, but certainly thank everybody for joining with us. And I think we'll kick it off a little bit and just talk to start with. Casey, you mentioned that one of the things, an idea for a show would be to discuss habits and what habits actually mean to you and how that helps in your lifestyle choices. So fill us in what your thoughts are in regards to habits and how they work for you, good ones, bad ones, etc. So what were your thoughts on that?
So I'm going to start with my bad habits, and I think a lot of people could relate with this, is during the pandemic, I really found myself going into social media more than focusing maybe on business or reading. And so one of my bad habits is going in and getting on social media and kind of just numbing out to all the noise around me. So I recognized that. I wrote down some of my negative habits and then decided to come up with an action plan of what I was going to do instead of that. And so things that I like to do is, an example is that I talk to Amanda a lot about reading. She reads a lot. I do a lot of audibles, but I haven't been reading lately. So one of the habits I've actually been doing is, before I get on social media or anything, I have to read at least one page. And one page you might laugh at because it's like, what is one page? But the reality is one page turns into 5, turns into a chapter. But if I can just set my goal to be very easy and attainable as one page, I can do that. Very simple. And that's kind of how I've made easier goals for me to achieve. You know, maybe instead of drinking half of my body weight, I'm gonna go for 60 ounces. I know I can get 60, and then everything else is a little bonus for that. I'm a big scheduler, so I was telling Amanda, I have to schedule things, what I'm going to be doing, so that I can keep myself accountable in that way as well. So those are some quick tools that I use right now for getting back into the habit of things that I'm wanting to get back into.
Okay, Amanda, what are your thoughts?
Oh, finding the bad habits is going to be a lot easier than the good ones right now for me. So I did come up with some bad habits during the quarantine that I numbed myself out also with food or social media. One of the things that I noticed though is I started tracking like when I would just mindless eat, like when I was eating stuff that I knew my body didn't need. And a lot of times it was either after a session of numbing on social media or something I was watching. So then I kind of started to pay attention to what I was watching. And so if I was watching like a show where they were drinking a lot of wine and eating good food, like say Below Deck on Bravo, I would binge on that and then think that I needed to eat and drink. And so it's so weird how it just subconsciously got into my head. And so I had to be aware of that and either not watch it or watch it during certain times. I know that sounds really stupid, but that really was something that was getting into my head and forming bad habits that I absolutely didn't need. And so Casey said I am an avid reader, and the truth is I really used to be, but since having kids, I kind of just got further and further away from it because you're reading books to them, or when it's time for bed, you just want something quick. And so I would do social media. But what I have flipped my script, and the good habit I've taken is I've gotten back to reading during the quarantine, and I've put my phone away completely. Before I go to bed, I plug it in and get in bed, and then I read. And so that has actually helped my sleep to improve quite a bit, not having all the thoughts that come with being trapped into comparison or, you know, whatever gets in your head from social media. And so that's been a good habit that I have flipped the script on and turned that into something. And so then in addition to that, I am now alternating between a book for entertainment and then a, you know, a self-help or an informational or whatever. And so it's not, I like to keep that fresh and switch back and forth now with my reading.
Absolutely. Sherry?
I would say, if I'm going to follow suit as far as bad and good habits, I would say too during the pandemic that it's easy to self-soothe or find some enjoyment in food and sort of justify what you're eating because you feel sorry for yourself and you're, you know, well, this is the only enjoyment I get right now. And so in order to combat that, one of the things that we did at our house is obviously we're limiting going to the grocery store and things like that because of to reduce our exposure, but it's hard to eat that kind of junk food and things that are bad for you if it's not in your house at all. And so the pantry looks pretty bare right now, which is a good thing. And so we're limiting the amount of, or actually excluding them altogether at our house right now, but there's no sweets in the cabinet. There's the carbs are very low around us, and sometimes it just takes setting limits for yourself to be successful. And so that's working for us.
Very good. And the buck stops here, right? Circles back around. My bad habits. One of my worst habits, I think, is eating too late. And that's something that I've worked on over the years because I know that anything pretty much that I eat, especially when it comes to anything over 20, 30 grams of carbs at night past 6:30, I probably am not going to get a good night's sleep. And so I've worked really, really hard on that. And especially during this time, it's easy to lose time. You know, it's easy to lose time when you're doing things on a different schedule. And so consequently, it would get away from me and I'd look and see that, well, it's 6 o'clock at night and haven't put any effort into getting anything ready for supper. And again, Francesca and I have discussed this, but you know, our schedules kind of go in different directions at times. And so consequently, then we're faced with, well, do we throw something together very quick at, or extremely fast at 6 o'clock and then try to, you know, eat, you know, before 6:30 mark. And then, so now you're faced with maybe not making the best choices. And so what I did, and this is about as simple as it gets, is I put a reminder on my phone that goes off, a notification that just says, shut it down. And that's all it says, shut it down at 6:30. And so I think I need another reminder that says, think about prepping, you know, maybe at 5 o'clock if you haven't already done it, because 6:30, yeah, you can shut it down. But if you haven't eaten, or maybe it's a fasting day and you've already fasted, and so you have limited amount of, you know, calories in your body at that point, I don't want to go to where I haven't eaten enough calories either. So planning and scheduling is a big thing for me. And that's just one area that kind of got away from me a little bit, but I'm dealing with it. And I think I'm in a lot better place than I was a month ago, because I was eating a little bit late on a few occasions, and I was paying the price. I just wasn't getting any good sleep at all. So now that I'm kind of back on track, it's certainly helped me. So that's pretty much the biggest issue I think that I've dealt with during this time that we've been, you know, faced with the coronavirus and spending more time at home, etc. What are your thoughts, and what are some things, guys, that you've clued in that's helped you in regard to establishing good habits? You know, I'll start it off with, I can tell you that for me, reading, you know, Amanda, I'll, you know, kind of segue off of what you were talking about with reading. Reading the science of habits. You know, there's a lot to it. And a couple of my favorite books are, one is Good Habits, Bad Habits by Wendy Wood. And I was actually looking at this. It's one that Gary passed on, Gary Abram. But another one, probably my favorite one, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that's sort of like the Bible to me of habits. And the neat thing I like about that is he really gets into the idea that willpower only goes so far, you know, and we put a lot of emphasis in our society on willpower. And unfortunately, willpower is very limited. And so for me, knowing that if I'm relying on willpower all the time, that resource isn't going to be there when I need it, when in its most crucial time. But if I have habits that I built into my routine, then I don't have to lean into the willpower and pull from that resource. So though willpower is important to a certain extent, I don't want to drain my resource of willpower. And so consequently, I work real hard on just establishing those habits that I'm kind of like on auto cruise, and I don't have to think about it too much. And that holds true with my nutrition, holds true with my workout schedule. If I just don't have to think about it that much and sink a lot of willpower into it, and it's just a habit, sort of part of my DNA, then it tends to work pretty well. And so both of those two books, I think, talk a lot about that, and that's one reason that creating good habits is really, really important. And I guess the last thing that I would say is when it comes to habits, and, you know, Casey, you and I have talked about this quite a bit too, that it's a lot easier to replace a habit than it is to stop one cold turkey and start a new one. And so I'm constantly thinking about how can I replace a habit? And so that if I'm already occupying time or thought with one habit, I can maybe switch it out with something that isn't like I'm just starting from a point of like from scratch. So that's another thing that I think when it comes to habits, those few things have really helped me in my journey of creating good habits. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. So anybody else?
Yeah, Mike, I agree with you. Atomic Habits, that's a book that I've read. Mel Robbins has one as well, the 5-4-3-2-1, and that's a great resource to use. Basically, don't think about it, just count from 5 to 1 and then move and do. I think also when it comes to building habits, I would ask people, what is the habit you're wanting to do? And can you find a group of individuals that are already doing it to help you move in that direction? And a great example is the Beyond Fitness gym. You know, if you're new to the workout scene, it's find the people that are already working out in a nice little, you know, fitness family and join that group. The best is when you find the group, it doesn't matter where it's at, they're gonna make you feel great and let you be part of it, and it's easier. The workouts might be hard, but you're gonna surround yourself with people that are trying to do the same thing. So it'll help you with your success. The other thing I like to use too, and I said it with my bad habit, reading, you know, setting the super simple goals, keep it super simple, right? KISS, the acronym. And it's like, you know, if you're wanting to go to the gym or something like that, but sometimes the gym's a little daunting, and right now the gym's a little indifferent with everything. But maybe the first start of that habit is getting in a routine of packing your clothes. Like my goal right now is to pack my clothes, my gym clothes, and put them in the car. To you and I, that might be nothing, right? I do it every single morning. I lay out my clothes. It's no big deal. It's part of my routine now. But to someone, that can be very daunting. And so getting them to start with that. Then the next step is maybe they do go into the gym. And then I also like to do like 10 minutes. You know, some people get so hung up that they have to do an hour of a workout or movement. And it's like, no, just go for 10 minutes. And then that 10 minutes turns into 20. And then that 20 minutes turns into a weightlifting session. And then you just kind of build onto that nice habit routine.
I think also, so this is not necessarily it's not at all fitness related, but it's a little bit health related. So I get, as I age, my allergies seem to get worse and worse. And so I've just been having, like, I never had allergies until about 5 years ago, but this year it's been hard for me. And my husband has always taken different medicines and whatnot for allergies. And so he's like, I don't know why you won't just take this Flonase. It's gonna help, just do it. And so for weeks and weeks and weeks, he's been on me. And so my daughter takes it and he takes it, like they have their own separate, obviously, but they would take it, and he's always having to remind my daughter. He's like, why don't you remind her? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't take any daily medication, so it's not in my head. I randomly will take supplements, but I'm just not good at it because I don't have something to attach it to. So I finally started taking it, and I set it right next to my toothbrush because I brush my teeth every day. That's a given. So I set my Flonase right next to my toothbrush because I attached it to something I already do. So I brush my teeth and then I take my Flonase. And then right there, I've attached it to something. And so now it's become easy, and it's become something that I don't have to think about because I see it right sitting right next to my toothbrush. Yep.
Excellent.
And I can breathe better.
Good for you. Sherry, any other thoughts in regards to habits and, you know, sort of like what maybe things that you've learned that work, and maybe some things that just don't work for you?
I think as far as one of the things for me that can make the most success with building a habit is, like you guys said, is associating with something that you're already doing. You know, it like Amanda said, I am going to brush my teeth for sure every day. You do that without thinking about it. So then you take your medication. And so I agree. I think with our health habits, for sure, that helps you to be successful. But I think also people see movement or exercise as this terrible thing that they just have to do, and they put it off and procrastinate it, and it's awful. But for me, one of the things that I like to do, as far as just even from an easy movement standpoint, I have a couple of different walking groups and walk with different friends, and it's not that it's you know, really that taxing, but at the same time, it's movement, it's steps, it's you know, it helps you from a body and a mind perspective. You know, you're enjoying that companionship and at the same time getting some steps and movement going. So I think that's something that's helpful, and especially as finally our weather has kind of made it more conducive to doing things like that, especially trying to adhere to social distancing and things like that. It's easier to do outside, and so at the same time you're getting that sunlight and vitamin D and the companionship and time with friends and movement. So to me, it's to help yourself to make healthy habits when it comes to moving is associate it and attach it to something that would otherwise be fun anyway. So for me, in that case, it's hanging out with somebody else that I enjoy their company.
I think that's a great segue. Not that we can't reflect back on the question about habits, but I think that is a great segue into the next area, just to talk real briefly kind of about what our favorite modalities are regarding exercise and or just movement for that matter. You know, we've talked on this show before about movement versus exercise a little bit, but it might be a good chance for us to kind of talk about what are our favorite forms of exercise / movement. I mean, I'll certainly kick it off. I am one that really likes different types. I mean, I can't really zero in on one, but I can give you some ideas about things for me that keeps it fresh, and that I tend to be a bit seasonal when the biking season comes around, like what we're in right now. I cried this past weekend when we had 6 to 7 inches of rain and the trails were washed away, because I knew that was going to limit me a little bit on the trail rides, but able to switch back over and get on my bike and do some riding on the road on Sunday, which was nice. But so I'm a bit seasonal in that regard. When it's really cold outside, I don't mind getting into the gym, getting on a spin bike, doing some work there. You know, here at home, I have my bands to work with. So I'm a bit all over the place. I just know that I do, in regards to habits, I have my daily routine that in my head, I know I'm going to get a workout in. I don't know specifically every day what that workout might look like. It changes from day to day. And certainly there are some of my steadfast band workouts. I really enjoy HIIT workouts. Also enjoy yoga. Believe it or not, you know, if you'd have told me that 7 or 8 years ago that I would really enjoy yoga, I would have told you you're crazy, but I really do enjoy yoga. I've sort of learned how to bleed in yoga with a workout mentality, core power yoga, which right now is limited with what they can do in the classroom, like many of us are. We can't really do much there, have to do some things at home. But adding an element of a workout to yoga is somewhat pleasurable for me. But yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. And so that's kind of my mentality. The one thing I think that has really, really helped me in regards to, if I would say, what are my favorite types of workouts, is I've blended in that idea of recovery to my workouts. And so I look at some things like today, I was actually in the sauna for a good 45 minutes and had a great sweat, came out of there knowing that, you know, you wouldn't consider it a workout, but at the same time, the last 10 minutes was a little bit tough because I'd lost a lot of fluids. I'd been in there a little while, and we know that too, saunas can be a pretty good calorie burn. So I probably burned 500 calories during that 45-minute span. So all of those things kind of pack together well for me. And I know everybody has their different mentalities, but that's sort of how I approach it.
Yeah, Mike, I feel like I can really relate to you on, I like doing everything. So I don't like to put myself in a box of, oh, I only do, you know, strength training movements and things like that. So I too like to get in and do barbells, dumbbells, anything. But my favorite equipment, which I bet you guys can guess, is I do like the TRX
3
suspension.
letters.
Right. So the TRX suspension trainer is actually hanging up behind me, and that's what our gym has. We have 10 of these that suspend from the ceiling. What I love about this is that even though that might look daunting, anyone can do it, and it's very mobile. So I literally can take the kids, not right now, but I could take the kids to the park, let them play, and I cook that up. We went to Oklahoma a couple weeks ago, and I just packed that in my bag and I hooked it up to a door and was able to get a workout in. I'm planning on going to Idaho, and I'm going to be taking that. So that's probably one of my favorites because it's total body resistant training, and you can take it anywhere. I also enjoy yoga, so we've been doing a lot of yoga during this time as well. So those are kind of my 2 things: yoga and suspension training.
Wait, we can't get past this new passion that you developed here recently.
Oh.
Come on, girl, don't let this slide. You gotta go there.
And then the other thing, Amanda and I, you know, we're gonna be the middle-aged women that become the next Lance Armstrong.
I love it.
It's gonna be our success story. Here are these middle-aged moms that found their love for biking. So Amanda, she purchased a bike, and we started to bike for fun, and we've really only gone on 3 rides. But we have found that biking's been really fun. Now for me, I've always been a huge runner, and the biking has just really helped my body not hurt as much. And so that's why I have really enjoyed it as well. And plus, I'm surrounding myself with my friends who, just like Sherry walking with her friends, we laugh and have a good time. We might fall off of the sidewalk every once in a while, maybe have to jump off our bikes, but we get it done.
I was going to say real quick, Casey, something that I learned a while back about biking, and you mentioned a little bit before the show started that you had struggled a bit with your hips, et cetera, that was kind of a sore point for you and your training. I too have dealt with that, a little bit of sciatica and some other issues. So running was kind of getting the best of me. The cool thing about biking, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of chronic cardio. I think that, you know, it creates a lot of oxidative stress. And so you have to be careful with that to kind of negate that factor if you're doing a lot of cardio work. But I will say that one thing that I did notice is that I can maintain a heart rate of 135 to 140 beats a minute on a bike and sustain that for a long period of time, hours upon hours, if necessary, to complete the ride, get off the bike and feel fine. My recovery settles in really nice. And the next day I don't feel like I have a lot of lactic acid versus on a run when I was running, you know, a 45-minute run where you've got your target heart rate, you know, peaking at around 135, 140 beats a minute, you're going to feel that the next day. And so that's the difference for me when it comes to biking and running, is that you can definitely sustain target heart rate training for a much longer period of time without some of the negative consequences. So just as a follow-up to that. So Amanda, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I also would have a hard time picking like just one favorite, but I would say a top one for me is just a HIIT training, like 30 minutes of HIIT, just because it just seems very productive, I guess. Like there's not time wasted. You get in, you sweat, you know, get a decent calorie burn and you're done before you can start to complain or hate it. Like I like that about it because I tend to be not good at working out by myself. I don't enjoy working out by myself. I enjoy doing it more socially with a friend or teaching a class, just because I'm not, as weird as it may sound, I don't push myself. Like I'm not going to push myself to keep going. If I start to really get bored, I will be like, oh, is somebody calling me? And I quit. Like, so with the HIIT, it's harder to do that. It's harder to get bored. A HIIT workout, you just go hard and be done. Like a 30-minute, 20-minute HIIT workout is one of my top things if I'm not going to be working out with somebody else.
Sherry, any other thoughts on, I know that you do different, you've worked out, we actually were doing some classes together, one that Amanda taught, I think, and maybe one that Casey taught. And so you seem to kind of thrive in that element, right? Like you were in the mode at the moment when I remember those classes looking over that you were biting it off and getting after it.
Well, that's why I kind of find Amanda's comment hard to believe because she really kicked my butt in that class. So just kidding. But no, and I would agree. And that's why I think sometimes, you know, I never really thought of myself as a person that really liked group classes. But there's sort of a little bit of that competitive nature that is like, yes, I'm going to bring it. I don't want to look like the middle-aged mom that I am. So, you know, it kind of gives you that drive to want to do just a little bit more. If I was by myself working out, I might too get a little distracted and want to do something different. And kind of to echo the same thing that you guys said, I think it's great to mix it up and do different types of exercising. Again, seasonally too is so important, and why not take advantage of being outdoors when we can? Because we certainly have all winter to be inside also. So I call it, you know, like the ADD of working out. I'm all over the place. I might do this one day and something else the next. But I think that actually creates a better exercise or movement routine if you're not doing the same thing over and over again. Just a less chance of getting bored and more, you know, more of a chance of sticking with it and being successful. And it is kind of fun to try something different. And so, and certainly there's all kinds of options out there. So.
And let's face it too, I think a lot of people that might be tuning in are a bit intimidated by just the term exercise, right? And so sometimes I think that the reference to just movement is maybe a better term for some people. and that, you know, taking the steps as opposed to the escalator, or, you know, parking in the parking lot at a far place from the store and doing a little bit of walking, and some of these things that we can build into our lifestyle that really do make a difference, and they can definitely serve to you know, work off calories, increase our heart rate, do some things that metabolically that will help us in our fight against, you know, disease, help us with longevity, to stave off other things. So certainly I don't want people to believe that, you know, exercise programs have to be, like Casey, you mentioned, a full hour in length. That sometimes just getting started and doing some things that are more in line with just body movement is maybe a start, and could eventually lead into a more significant workout type program. So I think what we'll do, as we're getting a little bit long in the tooth here, I think we're going to go ahead and call it good for today. I would like to mention one thing that starts today with our Consiglio Wellness Center Commit to Be Fit strategy, and that is our virtual run walk that runs through June 1st through June 7th. And we're really excited about it. You know, we were talking earlier today, Sherry, that as of last count, we're right at 90 people who have already signed up. I'm really excited to see some of the pictures and some of the comments that people make at the conclusion of the virtual run walk. And that really is something that we had hoped to get close to 100, and we're almost right there. So that'll be exciting to see how people did on this first attempt at creating some community with our Consiglio Wellness Center group. We'll see, you know, and again, some people have committed to 5K. We actually have some people that are going some further distances, half K, or I'm sorry, 10K, half marathon, and possibly even a full marathon. And we did have a few folks that said, can we use this over the entire week and accumulate the mileage for a full marathon? And I said, yes. Whether or not they do it, we'll see. But it is something that is a kind of a challenge for us, kind of a new start. If people have not, by the way, picked up their t-shirts, you can still come by the CWC and get those this week. This broadcast, hopefully we'll get it out as soon as maybe tomorrow or Wednesday. So we'll probably be nearing the end of our journey on this, on our first adventure. But again, I'd like to thank Amanda for joining us this week. We really appreciate. You're always welcome to join us on any of our calls. Casey, again, thank you for your comments, and Sherry, really appreciate everybody